I'm the chairman of the German Vape Trading Association. We represent the whole supply chain of the vaping industry in Germany, from small business owners up to large companies, manufacturers, importers, distributors. And yes, I want to talk about regulation in the EU and with a special focus on some examples. I will make a short introduction to TPD2 for those who don't know it. I don't think there will be many people who don't know the TPD2. I will shed some light on the transposition into national law in 3 countries. We will have a look at the effectiveness and the problems that aroused from that, and if we have time, we'll see we could take a short look on the solutions and the outlook of those regulations. So TPD2, the first time started to regulate the electronic cigarette, and this is something we are all happy about, because before, when we had a completely unregulated product, there were different problems we had to cope with, and so we welcome regulation, and let's have a look what that means. Everyone knows the maximum of 20 milligram per milliliter in nicotine strength, that the bottles are not allowed to have more than 10 milliliters, tanks not more than 2 milliliters, with some specialties I will be talking about. We have a handful of forbidden ingredients in e-liquids like caffeine and vitamins, and some other stuff regarding product safety. Another big part is the product notification, meaning that before you want to bring a product on the market, you have to notify it to the EU 6 months before you bring it to the market. And this happens by using a software that was written like in the 70s of the last century, at least if you ask people who use it. And there is also a data gathering to evaluate how it works, how the market works, because politics don't know anything about this product. They don't look at science, they want to see how the market works. So you have annual submission obligations of data on sales, consumers, underage use, marketing, and so on. And then we have some product presentation rules, like the leaflet, the warnings on the outer packaging, and restrictions on commercial communication. That is also part of this regulation. So this is the regulation on the EU level, with this directive that has to be transposed into national law by the member states. And we will have a look at 3 of the biggest markets for e-cigarettes in Europe, UK, France, and Germany, and to see how differently they interpret the TPD. UK, first thing, obvious, 2 milliliter maximum volume applies to all kind of tanks. They did not establish any additional forbidden ingredients. And they, of course, have the obligation to notify a new product, but they have no real 6-month waiting period. You notify via the European Union tool, you get an invoice, pay it, and then you get published on the MHRA website, and can start selling your product right away. We have around 40,000 entries on this notification list for the UK. And the MHRA gives extensive guidance for producers, for importers, for retailers, how this regulation works, what they have to do, when and where. And also they are behind you to gather this annual submission data, so they can gather this data and help evaluating how the market works. Then we go to France, which is a little peculiar. It starts that the 2 milliliter maximum volume of tanks only applies to disposable cartridges that contain nicotine. This is one effect of their view, that they say the TPD only rules nicotine-containing products. So if a tank does not contain nicotine, it does not fall on the TPD, which is a little strange because the wording of the TPD is quite clear on that matter. But this leads to another thing that is special to France. They also do not require you to notify a product that does not contain nicotine when you give it to the customer. So any battery, any coil head, any empty tank does not have to be notified. In France, you can start selling right away. So in the UK, you have a waiting period of 2 to 4 weeks. In France, you have no waiting period at all. The amount of entries, unique SKUs in France is at 37,000, which is quite similar to the UK. But it consists only of nicotine-containing liquids and devices that are sold with pre-filled nicotine-containing cartridges. What is special about France, they have the rule that you are not allowed to present your e-cigarette as a cessation tool, smoking cessation tool, because if you do so, it is considered a medicinal product for which you need approval. And as to my knowledge, no e-cigarette seeked this kind of approval yet in France. So now we come to Germany, which is, I'm told from people from outside Germany, a strange country. And let's see why that is. The 2 milliliters don't apply to empty tanks too, but not because we don't think it should, but because this thing got lost in translation in Germany. The English version is pretty clear on that. The German translation of the EU TPD is not that much clear, and allows the interpretation that it applies only to cartridges, pre-filled cartridges containing nicotine. Germany also implemented an extensive list of forbidden ingredients in e-liquids. While we have a handful on EU level, Germany has 2 pages full of ingredients that are not allowed, like some flavors and other things. So liquid legal in France or UK might be illegal in Germany. And then the very strange thing in Germany compared to the other countries is this 6-month rule is enforced strictly, meaning not only you have to wait 6 months, but even if you want to import a product that has been on the market for years already and has passed those 6 months, you as a new importer are obliged to register it again, notify it again, and wait your own 6 months, which makes no really sense, and leads to an amount of 130,000 entries as opposed to 40,000 in UK and France. So we see we have a lot of differences in the transposition on national level. We have a massive distortion of trading conditions. The French market and the UK market is filled with new products that can be sold immediately, in Germany not. So we have a lot of cross-border sales. One of the goals that the TPD wanted to achieve, the harmonization, caused the exact opposite. It's led to a disharmonization, and also the lack of enforcement in other countries, or the lack of proficiency of the German authorities leads to those problems. So just a very quick outlook, what we have to do. We, as Peter already mentioned, will have an evaluation coming. So we have to put national pressure on politics to report to the EU, to the Commission, what problems we have. Try to educate them about not only tobacco harm reduction, but also about the problems they generated with this TPD. And also one part is the European Consumer Initiative, Vaping is Not Tobacco, which is currently running, which seeks to take out the regulation of e-cigarettes out of the TPD and make an own regulation separated from tobacco. And this is something that will go on.
You can applaud now, he's done.